right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here on the eve of the third anniversary of the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. I'm Dominique Lee, and I am president of the Planned Parenthood Advocacy Fund of Massachusetts, which is the political and advocacy arm of Planned Parenthood League of Massachusetts. Our mission is simple and urgent: to protect and expand reproductive freedom for every person in the Commonwealth, and to ensure access to high quality, affordable, inclusive sexual and reproductive health care, no matter who you are, where you're from, or who you love. And we are here to make one thing clear. We will keep our doors open, and we will keep fighting for the right to control our bodies, our lives, and our own futures. And I am proud to stand with four of our fiercest champions here today: Democratic Whip Catherine Clark, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, and Congresswoman Lori Trahan. Now, long before Dobbs, these women were leading the fight for abortion access, Black maternal health, affordable health care, and the right to make personal health decisions without government interference. Thank you for your leadership. We are so proud to stand with you today. So, why we are here today? 3 years ago, the Supreme Court gutted Roe, and since then, we have watched a public health crisis unfold. Abortion banned or restricted in 20 states. Patients traveling hundreds or thousands of miles to get care. Clinics closing. Doctors silenced or criminalized. Pregnant people being turned away for emergency medical care. And yes, people are dying. This isn't just a looming crisis. This is the reality of today. And still, we show up. Here in Massachusetts, we continue to fill the gap, caring for patients for out of state, expanding long-acting birth control methods and gender-affirming care services, training OB/GY residents from places like South Carolina, and ensuring patients can get care and access within days, not weeks, all while carrying the weight of a national emergency. And now, a new threat: the GOP's so-called Big Beautiful Bill. Let's be clear. It is a backdoor national abortion ban, even in safe haven states like Massachusetts. This bill would defund Planned Parenthood by blocking Medicaid reimbursements. So it is not just an attack on abortion. It is an attack on basic life-saving and life-affirming care. And here's what it means to us. PPLM serves over 30,000 patients annually. Nearly 40% are on Medicaid. If this bill passes, it won't matter that abortion is legal here. People will likely lose access to birth control, STI testing, cancer screenings, and most of all, a provider that they trust, gone. Trump and his allies know this. They know that it could shutter nearly 200 health centers nationwide. They know that it could wipe out nearly half of PPLM's revenue. And they know that it would block thousands from care. And still, they push forward because the cruelty isn't just part of the policy. It is the policy. That's right. So let me be clear. Planned Parenthood will not back down. We will not abandon our patients, our staff, and our communities. We are going to fight like hell because there is no backup plan. No one is waiting in the wings. If we close our doors, people will suffer. People will die. We're working with Governor Healy and legislative leaders to seek state-level backfill. But let's be clear. State budgets cannot fill the hole that this bill would create. So here is my call to action to you. If you believe in freedom, fight. If you believe in dignity, fight. If you believe that every person deserves the right to control their bodies and shape their future, fight. like everything depends on it, because it does. We cannot let this bill pass when there is so much on the line. Dobbs showed us the unthinkable can happen, and now it is our turn to show them what we are capable of, because our vision is stronger than their hate, and our future is still ours to shape. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And now it is my honor to turn it over to the fearless Democratic Whip, Catherine Clark.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dominique, and to the Planned Parenthood Advocacy Fund. We are in this fight with you and we'll stand together. And I am so proud to be here with the incredible women of the Mass Federal Delegation and my colleagues who are leading the fight for health and for freedom for women in this country. But before I begin on the topic at hand, I would like to address what we witnessed over the weekend. Donald Trump's unilateral decision to attack Iran is unauthorized and unconstitutional. Only Congress has the power to declare war. And by once again treading on the Constitution, Donald Trump has exposed our troops and the American people to the risk of further escalation. We need answers. Congress, the American people, our service members, and their families. And it is very tied to why we are here today, because Trump is also attacking us at home. Tomorrow will mark 3 years since Trump's Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. For 3 years, the Republicans have marched nonstop towards their ultimate goal of a national abortion ban, with total control over women's health care in every state, including Massachusetts. And now we have their big, ugly betrayal of women budget, which will impose the single biggest healthcare cut in our country's history and inflict the biggest assault on women's healthcare since Dobbs. First, they go after Medicaid, kicking 300,000 Bay Staters off of their health coverage, hiking premiums on moms and kids. In Massachusetts, Medicaid covers 1 out of 3 children. It pays for 1 out of 3 births. 2/3 of Americans have a connection to Medicaid. Either they're covered or a loved one is. Medicaid keeps our moms, kids, seniors, students, everyone healthy and out of the ER waiting room. That's what Republicans are cutting. All to do what? To fund tax breaks for the very, very wealthy. But they're not stopping in this budget at Medicaid. They are also barring abortion coverage from private ACA plans. And it's not enough just to take away health insurance and those plans. They want to take away health providers too. In this budget, they are proposing to defund, as Dominique laid out, Planned Parenthood. This bill would tear $15 million from Planned Parenthood here in Massachusetts. That is half of Planned Parenthood's budget. It would defund cancer screenings and prenatal care, postpartum services, fertility treatment, and preventative care. 96% of Planned Parenthood's clinical work has nothing to do with abortion. And Republicans know that there have been no federal dollars in decades going to provide abortion services. But that hasn't stopped them from doing everything it needs to do to take away health care from millions of women. And let's be clear about what this is. This is a political attack that is driven by ideology, one that directly threatens the health, freedom, and lives of regular Americans. That is not what the American people are asking for. They have been sending Washington the opposite message, that it's too hard to get by. It's too hard to afford the basics. It's too hard to find a doctor. And still, the GOP is shutting down hospitals, ignoring the pleas of their own constituents while enriching the very richest few. To put it simply, this is a life and death fight. Every day I'm hearing from women in Massachusetts speaking about what Medicaid and Planned Parenthood mean to them. Hannah shared how she went to Planned Parenthood for the first time when she was 18. It was the first time she ever went to a doctor. It was the only health care she had access to. And without Planned Parenthood, she would have had nowhere else to go for basic care. Republicans are choosing to make life harder and more expensive and more dangerous for America's 170 million women and girls, all to help America's 900 billionaires. Well, those women are fighting back. House Democrats are fighting back. House senators are fighting back. I'm sorry. Yeah. Democratic senators are fighting back. Very House-oriented.
It's okay, you're the whip.
We're fighting to save lives. We're fighting to uphold people's dignity and to build an America that is worthy of our daughters. And I'm grateful to be joined by a leader who's on the front line of that fight, my friend, Congresswoman Lori Trahan.
Woohoo.
Well, thank you, Whip Clark, and good morning, everyone. Most folks have heard about what Republicans in Washington are trying to do with Donald Trump's big, ugly bill. They're trying to rip health care away from working families, from children with disabilities, and from seniors, also that they can pass another giant tax cut for their billionaire donors. Folks have heard about that because they've seen the headlines. They know that their out-of-pocket costs are about to go up. They've heard that their coverage is on the chopping block. They've felt the fear of not knowing how they'll afford insulin for their children or cancer treatment for their spouse. But what they haven't heard, what Republican leaders hoped that you wouldn't hear, is that hidden deep in the fine print of this bill is a direct attack on reproductive freedom. Buried in their 1,100-page reconciliation package is a provision that says this: if your state protects the right to choose, if your state ensures that women can access abortion care without jumping through hoops or traveling across state lines, then your state doesn't deserve federal health care funding under the Affordable Care Act. Let me say that again. Republicans are threatening to cut off critical health care dollars for states that protect reproductive rights. That means states like Massachusetts, where we require that health insurers cover abortion care when women need it. They could lose access to the federal funding that supports care for our most vulnerable families. It's a despicable act of political retribution. And it's a coordinated effort to force every state in the country to march in lockstep with Donald Trump anti-abortion and anti-woman agenda, even after the Supreme Court handed him the keys 3 years ago in the Dobbs decision. Tomorrow marks 3 years since that disastrous decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. And in doing so, the Supreme Court opened the floodgates to some of the most dangerous and extreme state laws we've ever seen. Laws that criminalize doctors, laws that deny care to women in life-threatening situations, laws that force rape survivors to carry pregnancies against their will. Since that day, Republicans haven't stopped. They haven't paused. They haven't listened to the vast majority of Americans who believe that abortion should be legal, safe, and accessible. Instead, they've doubled down. Now they're coming for states like ours, states where we said, not here, not on our watch, not in Massachusetts. And what's worse, some of our Republican colleagues didn't even know this provision was in the bill. Dozens of them have admitted that they didn't learn about it until weeks after they voted for it. That's how broken our Republican legislative process is right now. They didn't just sneak this policy into the bill in the 11th hour. They didn't even tell their own members what they were voting on. And while their leadership was busy celebrating another step toward a nationwide abortion ban, we were working to sound the alarm, because the American people deserve to know the truth. They deserve to know that Republicans are willing to use any tool, even your health care, your family's financial security, to punish states that protect women's rights. Make no mistake, this isn't just about abortion care. This is about power and control. This is about politicians in Washington thinking that they know better than women and their doctors. This is about punishing the voters and lawmakers in states like Massachusetts who have chosen a different path, one rooted in dignity, privacy, and the freedom to make your own health care choices. I won't stand for it. None of us here will. We're going to continue to fight back against this bill. We're going to protect the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid that cover over 1 million Massachusetts residents' health care that they depend on. And we are going to protect every woman's right to get the care she needs here in Massachusetts and in every state in this country. Because we're not going to go back to a time when women were shamed, silenced, and criminalized for making decisions about their own bodies. We are moving forward toward a future where reproductive freedom is not a battleground, it's a bedrock. A future where every person in every zip code has the right to control their own healthcare decisions and the support they need to do so safely and with dignity. That's what we're fighting for, and we won't stop until we win. It is now my privilege to turn it over to my friend, my colleague, and a true champion in this fight, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley.
Good morning. In a couple of days, our daughter Cora will turn 17. And as we're looking at colleges, one factor that shapes that decision, and it's a key factor, is where she'll be able to access healthcare. That's now a part of our calculus and our decision making. This morning, she asked me, in the wake of recent events in the Middle East, are we going to be okay? She has shared with me her concerns for classmates who are immigrants who have expressed anxiety and fear about going away for a vacation and whether or not they'll be able to come back into the country. And they were born here. So every day that she asks me, are we going to be okay? It becomes harder and harder to answer that question with confidence that yes, we will be. But standing here shoulder to shoulder with my colleagues, you certainly fortify me in this work and in that belief that we will be okay and we will get to the other side of this. Thank you all for being here today. I want to echo the sentiment offered by our whip a moment ago that Congress should do everything in its power to rein in Trump and to prevent an endless war in Iran. I want to underscore the urgency of protecting our reproductive freedom. Reiterate this in my role as the co-chair of the House Reproductive Freedom Caucus. So we have to do everything to protect our reproductive freedom and preventing Republicans' shameful, and it is shameful, reconciliation bill from putting necessary health care further out of reach for millions of Americans. When we say an abortion ban, what does that really mean? A nation of forced birth. A nation of forced birth. What could be more violent than that? What could be more void of common sense and compassion in a country that does not yet have universal child care, paid leave, an administration that seems to be hostile towards women, attacking our freedoms at every turn, degrading Head Start? There are 80 million Medicaid recipients in this country. 40% of births in this country are covered by Medicaid. So I want to say thank you to our partners in good at Planned Parenthood, who labor and love day in and day out, navigating a very perilous and unpredictable terrain. Thank you for showing up for Massachusetts to provide our constituents with essential health care. And I'll just share, when I came here in 1992 to pursue higher learning, a city where I did not know a soul, and found myself experiencing debilitating pain, I came to Planned Parenthood and was diagnosed with uterine fibroids. And I was met with compassion and community and embrace, and that meant everything. Again, I did not know a soul, I knew no one, but I knew that I could get answers and help at Planned Parenthood. Later, as a survivor of campus sexual assault, I also returned to Planned Parenthood for counseling and STI testing. So I just want to personally, again, just express my heartfelt gratitude for the entire team here, from security to providers and the like. Every time we're in Washington and folks across the aisle, mostly but not only white men, start to attack the critical work of Planned Parenthood, I know the moment they open their mouth that they have never sat across from a dedicated Planned Parenthood provider or patient, because if they had, they would understand the vital importance of this work. Planned Parenthood is often the only accessible healthcare provider for families. The Massachusetts 7th, we are fortunate to have a real density of healthcare services, but in many parts of the country, the only place you can access care for miles is a Planned Parenthood. And Planned Parenthood clinics across this nation are quite literally saving lives. Planned Parenthood is often the only option for miles for life-saving cancer screenings. Regardless of zip code, they are the trusted provider folks turn to for preventative and routine medical care. Planned Parenthood is the place you can go to get affordable birth control and compassionate prenatal care. The attacks on Planned Parenthood are nothing new. In this moment, they are far more coordinated and sinister than we have ever seen, however. Those who aim to rob people of this essential healthcare in their communities are using every tool: the courts, complicit state houses in many states, and notably, this big, ugly bill in Congress. Imagine having the full power and authority of the United States government controlling the White House and the Senate, and you choose to go after cancer screenings for mothers. The cruelty is the point. At this point, Republicans can't deny that they're actually in the business of making people across America sicker, poorer, and more vulnerable. I walked in here today with a heavy heart, with Adriana Smith on my mind. Adriana Smith was a 30-year-old nurse and the mother to a vibrant 6-year-old. When she experienced debilitating headaches, her pain was dismissed, not believed. She was sent home from the hospital without the care she needed. She woke up gasping for air, arrived at the hospital, and shortly thereafter was declared brain dead. The blood clots the doctors had missed had claimed her life. But to be a Black woman in America means that not only was Adriana's pain dismissed and her son robbed of a mother, no, because of an extreme abortion ban in Georgia, the hospital stated that they could not take her off of life support. And because she was 9 weeks pregnant when she was declared brain dead, about a month past a missed period, the hospital would not allow Adriana's family to make sensitive end-of-life medical decisions for their loved one. The hospital made her body an incubator. This week, baby Chance was delivered via posthumous emergency C-section and remains in the NICU. Adriana's family was finally able to lay her to rest and to pick up the pieces as they navigate their deep grief. I wish I could say that Adriana's story is a horrific anomaly, but we are experiencing up close the converging crises of Black maternal mortality and denials of essential abortion care in this post-Dobbs decision world. None of us are free until all of us are free. So this week, as we mark the 3 years since the devastating day the Supreme Court denied us our bodily autonomy and ripped away the basic right to abortion care in America, we recommit to fighting for families across this country to access the basic medical care they need to survive, to be safe in birth, to be treated with human dignity. This is not an inevitability. A more just America is possible, and it starts by defeating this big, ugly bill before it dismantles essential health care in America. So when we talk about defeating big, ugly things, I know somebody that knows how to do that very well. And I'll invite to the podium my sister in service and struggle and in solidarity, Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. So, like the whip, I want to start with what happened this weekend. Trump has launched the United States into another potentially endless war in the Middle East. Bombing another country is an act of war. The Constitution is clear. If there is no immediate threat to Americans, to our service members, or to the homeland, the president has no legal authority to order our troops to strike another country. None. War with Iran will not make us safer. We all agree that Iran should not have and cannot have a nuclear weapon to threaten the entire world. Bombing these nuclear facilities will set back Iran's nuclear program a few months or maybe a few years. But it is not possible to bomb away Iran's technology, Iran's know-how, and Iran's determination to build a nuclear bomb. The only potentially successful strategy for preventing Iran from developing a nuclear weapon is diplomacy, something that Donald Trump had been pursuing right up until Benjamin Netanyahu began bombing Iran. Donald Trump has made no plans for what comes next. His reckless decision, backed by many Republicans in Congress, makes it more likely this crisis escalates into a deadly cycle of violence. What now? Will Iran retaliate? Will Trump put U.S. troops on the ground? How many Americans' lives will Donald Trump risk? We cannot allow Donald Trump and pro-war Republicans to drag us into a new war in Iran with the same old failed arguments that we've heard before about war in the Middle East. Weapons of mass destruction, regime change, claims that targeted military action from the U.S. will somehow magically solve every problem in a foreign country. America did not vote for another endless war in the Middle East. We are heading back to Washington today, where Democrats have introduced a war powers resolution to stop Donald Trump from turning these Iran bombings into another endless war in the Middle East. We must put a stop to this madness now. Now, for the reason we are all gathered here today, the Dobbs anniversary, I want to say a very special thank you to the women who are here today, to Congresswoman Presley, to Whip Clark for pulling us all together, to Congresswoman Trahan, and to Dominique and all of your team at Planned Parenthood. You are amazing women who have carried leadership positions in this fight literally for years now. Today marks 3 years since Donald Trump's Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. And since then, we have seen a new form of hell brought on by Donald Trump and Republican politicians. 13 states now have an all-out ban on abortion. Women are being forced to carry doomed pregnancies to term. More are forced to miscarry in parking lots so they will be closer to death and therefore finally eligible for the medical care that they need. Since taking office, Donald Trump has doubled down on his anti-abortion agenda, rolling back emergency abortion protection, scraping reproductive health programs, and spreading misinformation about the safety of abortion medication. And now, Republicans in Congress and Donald Trump are on track to pass their big, beautiful bill. A bill that would rip away healthcare coverage and serve as a backdoor ban on abortion across the entire country, even in states like Massachusetts, where we protect access to abortion. Donald Trump lied when he said he was going to leave abortion up to the states. He and his Republican henchmen in Congress are doing everything they can to make access to abortion nearly impossible everywhere in America. So let me just remind everyone how this works. Republicans in Congress are now trying to pass a bill that would rip healthcare coverage away from 16 million people so that they can give trillions of dollars in tax giveaways to billionaires and billionaire corporations. Right here in New England, over 650,000 people will lose health care coverage as a result of this bill. Now, also in that bill is a line that effectively defunds Planned Parenthood. If this bill passes, Planned Parenthood could be forced to close 1 out of every 3 health centers across the country. And here's the kicker. 90% of those potential closures would be in states where abortion is legal. With so many fewer places available for abortion care, more women, even in states like Massachusetts where abortion is legal, will effectively be denied that care. In addition, the 1.1 million patients who rely on those Planned Parenthood's health centers will be cut off from other care, including cancer screenings, birth control, STI testing and treatment, and other healthcare services. Frankly, our healthcare system cannot afford to absorb this blow. Ripping away healthcare coverage and defunding Planned Parenthood is a 1-2 punch in the gut for women all across this country. But here's the thing. The people of Massachusetts voted each and every single one of us into office to fight for them, and they do not expect us to roll over and play dead. Here is our response to Donald Trump's big, ugly bill. Republican cuts to Planned Parenthood will mean that women, including women in blue states, will lose access to reproductive care. Democrats are ready to fight back. Additional Republican cuts will mean millions of Americans lose their health care coverage. Democrats are ready to fight back, to fight for little babies, to fight for pregnant women, to fight for new moms, to fight for everyone in Massachusetts so they can keep access to high quality health care. Republican cuts will mean that our healthcare system will be strained and hospitals and community health centers may close. Democrats are ready to fight back to save our local hospitals and our community health centers so that everyone has access to care. Now, Republicans hope that the American people just won't see what they are doing. They hope that in the chaos of bombing Iran and putting Marines on the ground in Los Angeles and open crypto corruption and a $400 million jet gift from a foreign country and $1 million a plate dinner for people who are hoping to win pardons or government contracts from Donald Trump, that no one will notice what they are doing to our healthcare system. Well, we see exactly what Republicans are doing. And on behalf of every patient who relies on Planned Parenthood for health care, on behalf of every family that relies on Medicaid, on behalf of every person in this country who believes that a woman has a right to choose, we are fighting back against this big, ugly bill with everything we've got. And with that, I want to bring the whip back up.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Senator. We'll open it up to questions.
It's a shy group.
Yeah.
Senator, one on topic and one
Sure.
off question.
Let's do the on topics first, and then we'll stay for the
On
offs.
topic first, I guess for you, since the bill is on your side
Yes.
of the hill, here's the thing with Germany, for it has 3 votes kicked off for this to pass in reconciliation. Rural Republicans predominantly receive Medicaid services. Some senators, such as Senator Hawley, have voiced concerns about this. Is there a possibility for common ground there with some of those red state Republicans?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Look, the people who will be hurt by the Republican bills live in blue states and red states. Shutting down access to health care hurts people all across this country. You know, getting sick, having a heart attack, needing abortion services is not limited to people who are Republicans or Democrats. It happens to human beings. We build a healthcare system and try to make it work for everyone. That is our job in Washington. And the Republicans are deliberately targeting the healthcare system. They are taking away healthcare from 14 million Americans, and that's going to have a profound impact on the hospitals, particularly the rural hospitals that cannot afford to take on uncompensated care and will be forced to close. And the consequence then hits everyone. Anybody who starts to feel chest pains, anybody who has a child who's bleeding after a playground accident, anyone who's been in a car wreck, now has got to go, instead of 14 minutes to where they can get some kind of medical treatment, they've got to travel an hour and a half. This is a point we are driving home as ferociously as we can with every single one of our Republican colleagues. We're going to talk about this. We're going to get them face to face and make sure they understand this, that if they vote to advance this bill the way it is written now, then they are going to cost the lives of the people that they have been elected to represent. You have a story to tell.
Yeah, and the bill is absolutely coming back over to the House. If the Senate changed a comma, it needs to come back to us. So we'll be seeing this again sometime in the next few weeks. But here's the situation we find ourselves in. 60% of American households are not able to provide the basics for their family. That's most households. And this bill comes along and says we are going to further rig the system against everyone except the extremely wealthy. We're going to make the winner circle so very small. And what you do when you cut 16 million people off of their health care is make their life very difficult. And this bill not only cuts Medicaid, the CHIPS program, which is the children's insurance program, it not only cuts Planned Parenthood and the services that they fund, it also is $500 billion out of Medicare.
Yeah.
So all of this together, and we don't even count in the 16 million what could happen to people on Medicare and reduction in those benefits. And then all of this is put on the country's credit card. And that price keeps going up. We're already at $3 trillion with some of the changes that have been made on the Senate side. That price tag is going to exceed $3 trillion added to our deficit. And that is a bill that we are saying to our children and grandchildren, you pay. And what do you get out of it? You get a tax break for someone who doesn't need it, won't notice it, and you'll never meet.
Despite the fight, if in fact this bill is passed and these cuts that we talked about come to fruition, 300,000 base hitters kicked off Medicare, what conversations, if any, have been had from the congressional delegation to the state level as to what the contingencies would be?
Yeah, I mean, we are working very closely with Governor Healy and her team, but states aren't going to have a lot of options. If you are asked to absorb the Medicaid cuts, the food program cuts, public school cuts, veterans benefits cuts, states do not have that ability and flexibility. They need a partner in the federal government. And if this was doing something that was moving us forward, we were asking people around this country to sacrifice for a common good, but that's not what's going on. We are saddling the future with debt, and we are saying to the overwhelming majority, the 99.4% of Americans, you don't matter. You don't matter. Our system, our tax code is going to be for the very few. And so what we have here is a situation where we want to continue our partnership with states to do things that people need, to invest in the American people and help them meet this affordability crisis. Why aren't we talking about building housing? Why aren't we talking about reducing the costs of premiums? Why aren't we talking about how we continue to have clean air and clean water as a right and not a privilege in this country? These are the things the American people are worried about, that they are telling us we cannot afford the basics. So this bill is not only cruel, it is hard to imagine why they are doing this. But that desire to rig the tax code for the very wealthiest is obliterating the American dream for most families in this country.
Last question.
And Senator, if we could talk to you about Iran briefly. I'm curious how you see the distinction between President Trump's actions and actions taken by Democratic presidents under somewhat similar circumstances without the authorization of Congress.
So right now, it's clear that the United States is not under direct threat from Iran. Our own national security advisor has said that Iran is not developing a nuclear weapon. There was no reason to move forward. Our troops are not at risk. Our homeland is not at risk. The American people are not at risk. Donald Trump has taken this action as he trails along behind Benjamin Netanyahu. And let me just put this in some context here. Negotiations were moving forward, and I give credit to the Trump administration. They were helping bring the parties together, negotiating to keep Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. Benjamin Netanyahu has never wanted to rely on negotiations. He has wanted to engage in military actions. He saw his opportunity. He shoved the president aside and the president's negotiation and moved forward, and then turned around and managed to pull Donald Trump in, who in turn seems to be working hard to pull the entire United States into war in Iran. The Constitution is clear. Only Congress can declare war. We all understand there are exceptions when our troops are at risk, when our homeland is at risk, when Americans are at risk, but none of those apply in this case. What Donald Trump has done is unconstitutional, and we're going to have a vote this week in the United States Senate on the War Powers Act, and this is our opportunity. It only takes a simple majority to reel back in Donald Trump and make clear to the world that the United States is not going to war against Iran.
Senator, Governor Healy was briefed by
I'm sorry?
Governor Healy was briefed by DHS about potential threats here in Massachusetts. What's your level of concern about retaliation from Iran showing up here in the States?
Well, you're reminding us that there are real consequences to what Donald Trump has done, and those consequences are not confined to the Middle East. We are now all at much greater risk because of the reckless actions of Donald Trump. We may experience consequences here in the United States, and Homeland Security is obviously on much higher alert now. But we also may be in the first part of just a cycle of they respond, then we respond, they respond, and then we respond. And before we know it, once more, we're in another endless war in the Middle East. The time to put a stop to it is right now. And the time for the United States Senate to speak up is before Iran acts and before Donald Trump acts again.
Thank you.
We good? I promised. Yeah.
To what extent is War Powers Resolution sort of closing the barn door? I mean, isn't the issue here the AUMF from post 9/11? Because the administration would claim probably that it acted on it.
If
Something Congress never probably did.
if we get a majority And we will have all of the Democrats. If we can pick up the Republicans we need to get a majority, that now makes it clear to Donald Trump that he is not permitted to do this, and that has an effect on all of the potential actions he takes in the future. You're right, none of us has a time machine. We can't go back on what he's done, but we have to respond to it. Because to fail to respond is to say, in effect, that it has been ratified by Congress. Now is the time to say no to Donald Trump. The Democrats are ready to do that. We need some Republicans to join us.
Senator, there have been examples where Democratic presidents have acted similarly. There's one example from 2011 when President Obama sent a coalition of South American forces along with NATO forces into Libya, into the civil war there to protect civilians. Do you see a distinction?
So, yes, there was the question about civilian harm at the time. Donald Trump didn't do any of this. He didn't stand up and say, look, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to protect civilians on the ground. Here's the ongoing dispute, and here's how we think we can help. He just followed Benjamin Netanyahu and said, we're going to blow up a part of Iran. And of course, he did that when his own security advisor, national security advisor, is saying the threat does not exist. And he then reports, once he's done it, we're all done. It's all happened. I've gotten rid of all of the nuclear threat, all of the nuclear material, only to turn around and the next day, his own vice president and the rest of his administration, his own chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff are all walking that back, saying that what Donald Trump said at the time he announced the bombing was just factually inaccurate. And that's the problem we've got here. So what happens next? Does Donald Trump go back to bomb again, wherever they think the nuclear materials may have been moved? Does he go back to hit a target again because he thinks, oh, it turns out they didn't wipe it out? He is trying to move the United States into war. He is putting us at risk. This joint resolution says this is wrong and that he does not have the authority to do so. Sorry. Yep.
Can we just put photos of everybody?
Yeah.
Put your photos together right here.